Alrighty, everybody. So, I guess here at last, the Aeronca is done. Um, it's complete. So you see the rigging is laid on, and I put the shrouds over the pulleys. And it's just these little metal flanges. I'm using cardstock for it, but it's just a little metal flap that they actually put to the side of the pulleys, and that helps keep the cables in place, keeps them from jumping the track, if you will. It also helps to keep some of the debris out and away from the rollers, and so on. So anyway, you see the rigging, rudder rigging pattern. I think I have a video describing how we did that, but you can see there that it stays clear of the fuselage. There's no points where it is rubbing against any part of the airplane. It just goes from control horn to pulley to control horn. And that's the idea. You want it to be as accurate as possible. Right, so the radio antenna wires on top, the radio antenna, I couldn't use the guitar string ends for the pulleys because of the scale, but I could still manage to find a way to use guitar strings, and there they are. What you do is just partially unwind. These are brass wound steel strings. So you just partially unwind the brass down to a point that looks about right. These are painted white, and then just insert it into the holes that we drill in the wing. And that gives us our, I don't even know how well you can see that on camera here, but there they are. Right, we got our vented fuel cap. We have our exhaust port. And we have the floats, the float decks appropriately set up with the non-skid, and so on. You can almost see the dummy motor that we fabricated in through the air intakes on the front. I used a bit of window screen for the lower intake, and that's pretty simple to do. I mean, you just cut a piece of window screen that you don't need, or off the roll if you're replacing your window screens around the house. I always keep probably a 1 foot by 2 foot square of it here somewhere, so that I have it to use whenever I need. Right, and then what do we use? We used a little bit of packaging blister pack material to cover the rear windows on either side. We use the kit supplied acetate for the front windscreen, and to wrap from each of these stanchions, wrap around the front. That eliminated that center seam that Guillow seems to love with their acetate. That just doesn't work for me anyway. And if you're like me and you don't want that, if you still want to represent a center stanchion or a center seam there, you can use trim tape or a strip of painted masking tape, and just cut it to the appropriate width and stick it on there. I mean, if you want that look, you can also use the provided piece of balsa and mount that inside of the windscreen. It might deflect when you're putting this on. It might deflect your acetate slightly. I would recess it. Is really not important if it's touching the windscreen or not. If it's there, your eye will detect that and see it there, and especially if you put that piece in and then run your strip of tape on the outside, the eye is going to be fooled well enough, I think, or convinced, if you want to use that term, convinced well enough that that's what's going on there, then so be it. I mean, I prefer the reason I think a lot of the early airplanes had that split there was that the ability to bend plexiglass was just not very good. I remember the first hockey visor I had, you know, that was clear when they first came out with those. It was terrible. I mean, it was, you know, warped, and the view through it was warbled, and was deeply affected by, you know, the cheesy method of heating and bending that. And I think now they've got it to a science. They can form it perfectly, and they don't need to put those dividers in there anymore. So anyway, there we are. The Aeronca Champion 85 from Guillow, done up as a static display model and a float plane, completely rigged with a single water rudder, which is common for the light sport aircraft. They don't typically use two sea rudders, and that's because the risk of over control, actually tipping the airplane over or dipping a wing accidentally by having an oversteer. One is enough, so one is what they do. And there you have it. I mean, I think it turned out okay. We got the interior color pretty close as far as being an okay sort of abstract match to the exterior. And again, how well you can see that on camera. It's just that, and that just makes the acrylic a little green, a little blue, a little yellow, a little bit of white. I couldn't tell you what the parts are. I just eyeballed it, made it look as close as I could, while still replicating the difference between fabric and metal, or gloss paint over fabric and metal versus just you know, over fabric, over vinyl, if that makes sense. I don't know. So yeah, this is the final. These are the so-called baby pictures. And as soon as I find a place for it, I can probably begin on the next project, which will be most likely Grumman F9 Cougar, early carrier jets, early U.S. Navy carrier aircraft. That'll be next, I think. Pretty sure. Just don't know when. Alright, any questions about how any of this was done, or what I used for material, or why, or anything like that? Just, you know, put them in comments with the videos that we do have, or post it up somewhere so I can see, and then I'll get to it as quick as I can. Later.